Hi everyone and welcome back. This is Sky coming on to do a nature walk dialogue today with just a few things that are on my heart and on my spirit as we're coming through April 2025. What I want to talk about today is I think coming through the end of Jupiter and Gemini, shine a little bit of light on that, and then also I'm wanting to talk further about just complex situations, complexities. There's a very strong feeling right now of a lot of like double-edged swords, two-sided coins. Like it's hard here, it feels, to really understand whether something is a positive or negative situation, as we have many things operating in conflict. And I feel as we've just come out of Neptune and Pisces, I will link my Neptune and Aries video below, we're getting some 0 degrees Aries energy in, while at the same time still having a little bit of the lingering anaretic energy from the previous years, the anaretic Pluto, the anaretic Neptune, also Uranus building up perhaps soon to be anaretic too, meaning at the final degree of their respective signs. What I feel is happening is we have a lot of out with the old and in with the new mindsets coming in. We also have a lot of stagnation and deterioration from situations that were too old or too burdensome. And I feel that there is just a lot of complexity here. And I feel that people are kind of like really complicating and perhaps even romanticizing some of the situations that they're going through. We are needing a new perspective, okay? We are needing to get onto our own side, and we are really needing to look at some of these like two-sided, double-sided kind of situations. We're needing to look at these situations with a little bit more factual undertone. The South Node is in Virgo now. We're needing to take the rose-colored glasses off of things, and we're also needing to take the pessimism out of things as well. So we really can't be too extreme or polarized about any situation that we're going through. What I'm really wanting to talk about in this Nature Walk dialogue today is what we can do at a quantum level to come out of some of this complexity. And for some people, complexity could be a nice way to put it. I am feeling for a lot of people in the collective right now that this isn't just a complex or complicated matter they're in. This could even be a nightmarish kind of situation where people's hands are really tied with some of their contexts. And in some ways, some of these contexts or life circumstances that some people are going through, they could be very romantic in a way, or they could be very full of potential, but also in this reality there might be a deterioration or a depreciation functioning like realistically. So it's kind of like having, like a rundown house. Like maybe it has a lot of potential, but first you have to deal with the deterioration that's happened. This could also be like suddenly having like a more youthful spirit, but you have to deal with the parts of yourself that have gone through maybe like a decade or longer of like negativity or trauma. This could be having a really nice business context on paper, but in reality it might be really jagged and flawed, but like it's creating a good like cash flow, but maybe there is like an integrity issue with it. This could also be like the other way around. Something is really nice in the physical, but it runs a severe financial deficit or can't work on paper. Two-sided situations, doublespeak. Also people saying one thing meaning another. Two-facedness is very strong here. Also people accidentally causing a lot of harm, not on purpose. Okay, so a lot of like accidental like explosions, or a lot of accidental just neglect. Okay, kind of like a neglecting energy here. And we need to, I think, really encapsulate some of these situations. So I don't even know what to call these. Are these like duplicities? Are these like paradoxes maybe? like life paradoxes where, okay, this business is perfect on paper, but in real life this is very problematic, or the actual function of this is problematic, or I just love the way that this is in real life, but it's in jeopardy, or, you know, I can't afford to sustain this, or perhaps, you know, I have all these desires to travel, but my health is not good enough to do it, or I have, you know, other dreams in my life, but my reality is not in like the right area karma to connect that. Like, for example, the head being in a different place than the feet, okay? The mind being in a different place than the heart. Even the hormones or the bodily needs or the impulses, urges, or bodily context not matching perhaps like the religious belief, or not matching perhaps the family ideology. Okay, for example, people being in like the closet here and being too afraid to come out of the closet. So like maybe living a double life, or living, you know, to please their family, or living to match some type of ego identity construct, but inside it's different. Or even perhaps you can see the emergence of secret lives here, or people can get caught, okay? And there can be also accusations of like lying here. Very easy to see the archetypal liar during this time. I don't mean to use such harsh language, but there is so much doublespeak, and it's not even doublespeak anymore. In some cases, there are just outright lies here, okay? Also living a lie, okay? Living a secret because one is too scared to acclimate to the social political context of their locality. And here we're going to start to see ultimatums come in, you guys. Okay? Some people are going to have to leave. Some people are going to have to sell out and pack up and go elsewhere. Some people, alternatively, are going to have to release the need to be something different. Okay? Because I'm feeling that it's very painful to hold on to these paradoxes, and it creates chaos when we have these paradoxes, you know? For example, someone who's gay trying to live in a straight marriage, okay? It creates a lot of chaos for both parties, okay? For example, someone who does not have enough money trying to start businesses, okay? Maybe they have to borrow, or maybe they have to cut corners, or maybe there's even such a desperation to make this work that they're like impoverishing their family. This creates chaos, okay? Because they have such, and all of this is revolving around these identity ego constructs. I have to be the business owner. I have to fall into these normal like 1950s family paradigms. I have to put all of my life force into this ego, and then you see health problems, or you see just like chaos. But, you know, this could have also been to a degree how things were over the last 15 years. I feel that here in April of 2025, it's like revving up a notch. So you're seeing people actually get kind of corrupted here, or you're seeing people take on such an excruciation of spirit if they're not embracing the sort of lightning quicksilver insights that have been coming up since about January, and just letting themselves be free, letting themselves pick up, letting themselves move on, letting themselves be honest, okay? At this point, even as early as April, but guys, especially by like September and October of 2025, like we've still got a little bit of time here. We've still got a little bit of time here to lighten our spirit up, be who we are, embrace honesty, accept the truth of our spirit, and not live these lies, not live these ego dreams, but actually become and create who we are and who our real identity is, okay? Because hitting April 2025, there's such an excruciation that I feel like the chaos is not just chaos anymore. It can almost become like, I don't know, like oblivion, or it's like chaos evolving into oblivion, or chaos evolving into just full-on deterioration, or full-on like not being able to really resuscitate or revive certain elements. So it gets kind of dark, you know. We're in the snake year. We've had Pluto change signs, we've had Neptune change signs, And if we can't get with the changes, if we can't bring ourselves up to date, if we don't allow ourselves the chance to have the dialogues to do so, it's really a commitment to shadow. And it's not just a commitment to shadow, it's a commitment to chaos. And at some point in time, we need to let ourselves come up to date. Again, it's just feeling so much like, this is something also that like young adults go through. And I've had this come up on my Patreon page, which I'll link below. I've had this come up a lot lately, having Jupiter in Gemini, as well as Neptune in Aries, Chiron in Aries, and these youthful signs, right? Even Uranus and Taurus to an extent. We are collectively in a young adult phase, like that sort of like 17 to 21 phase. And specifically, it's very masculine right now. So it's almost like a young adult masculine energy that the collective is in. And what that says to me is, on one hand, there's 1 foot in our childhood and 1 foot in our family identity, and then there's another foot in our individuation cycle and who we really are. And it can be really hard. It's when we have the Uranus quarter return starting up, and even in the early 20s, this can still happen. And for some people, even up towards the Saturn return, if it's really hard and if it's really excruciating, you can even go through your Saturn return. So like your late 20s and early 30s with this not double standard, but kind of, two-toned life experience where you're holding these different identities. Well, what happens here is it's very excruciating, because especially if there's a contrast between who one was in the family or during childhood and who one is moving toward becoming. You create an inner conflict, you create a disruption. And then also sometimes, even when one is a young adult, they have to still rely on the family, perhaps financially, but they're also trying to create their own. And sometimes one or the other suffers. It's like, in order to be who I am, I have to leave behind my family context, or I might lose my family financial support, in order to become who I am. At the same time, if I build up my family or move into who my family wants to be and accept that kind of abundance, I'm sacrificing who I individually am. And what I'm seeing right now is a refusal to settle. I'm seeing that a lot of people are like not wanting to choose one or the other, and it creates this kind of passivity, and it creates this acceptation of paradox, or this acceptation of this sort of darker chaotic energy. And oftentimes it can really gray out the actual present experience, because as you know, with that sort of young adult frequency that the collective consciousness is kind of in right now with these transits, oftentimes, it's kind of like a bit dilapidated in nature. It can barely afford to pay its bills, it might have roommates, it might live in rundown circumstances, it might be doom scrolling social media a lot, or watching questionable content a lot in order to make itself feel okay about the nature of what it's currently going through. It may not eat well, it may have a lot of coping mechanisms sort of unconsciously placed into its own life so that it can cope with having this paradox. So I want you guys to take notice, regardless of your age. Is anything like this happening in your experience, where there is 1 foot in and 1 foot out, where maybe your present situation is suffering because there's not the right centralization at a spiritual level and not enough commitment to a specific trajectory, as to where the energy becomes a bit confused, grayed out, or kind of bruised? And to where, you're having to take on all these coping mechanisms. Lots of sugar, lots of screen time, dilapidated surroundings, or maybe not dilapidated, but not as good as you can do. Anything in your life where it's like, we could do better than this. We can do a little bit better. My sleep cycles can be a little bit better. My activity and physical exercise routine can be a little bit better. My investments or my properties could be, this could be done a little bit better. Anything that has this kind of grayed out or chaotic energy, I feel during this time needs to be seen as a choice that has been enacted for a long time to try to please everyone. And what happens when you try to please everyone and you try to be everybody for everybody is your context loses all of its mojo. It loses all of its own primary essence. and things get gray, things get passive, things start to deteriorate. But everyone else is pleased, you know? So all that energy has kind of been extracted by these people, and maybe they haven't done it on purpose, you know, maybe we've consensually allowed this to happen, but I think we need to think about it during this time. Is this something I want to keep consenting to? Do I want to keep consenting to everyone else kind of like feeding off of my experience? Or, you know, also seeing that when you've got too much on your plate, or when you're trying to please too many people, it's also likely that no one's that happy because the energy is overextended. So oftentimes also what happens is you see like a downward trajectory where even like all these different people that you're trying to please, or all of these different groups that you're trying to acquiesce to, start to even become kind of put off in their own way, just because, you know, the essence of this whole situation is not really that great, because, you know, what you're creating or what you're generating at a quantum level perhaps has a certain deterioration factor to it too, because you're not maybe that behind where you're at. This is a very Jupiter and Gemini kind of context. And we fake ourselves out a lot with a lot of this media and a lot of the and even a lot of the idealism about what certain projects could yield in the future, or what having, you know, control, ownership, or resonance in a certain area could mean later, you know, if everything was functioning properly, or once there's enough money to make it better, or once you finally start, you know, you see all this is mirage. All of this is, until we put some present action behind it, kind of like, I think, some type of coping mechanism, and it's very in the head. So we're also building up by June to have the final Jupiter-Saturn squares, and a lot of this paradox and chaos energy is really evoking this Saturn in Pisces square Jupiter in Gemini energy to me. And, you know, having had Mars retrograde in Cancer for like the latter half of 2024 and first part of 2025 has really intensified this feeling. I hope this wind isn't bothering you guys too much. But it's really intensified this feeling, having all these debilitations. Also, Uranus debilitated in Taurus. It's been hard, and especially hard for people who are too afraid to commit to one side of things because of a fear of intervening, or a fear of being seen the wrong way. Very easy to see like a vanity during this time. Very easy to see, you know, in the negative, but also in the positive, someone who just is not willing to give up on a community, or not willing to give up on a project because they know what it could be. So, I mean, there are ways that this can express positively, but even that can be a bit shadowy in its own way, you know, because why isn't there a pathway to a better situation? You know, can you find that? Can you find a pathway towards a better outcome to this? If not, is it appropriate to be, you know, continuing to resuscitate something that is just not really coming to life here? So what I'm trying to get at though with these timelines, so by June we have the final Jupiter-Saturn square, and I feel that there's going to be something that happens, you all, between now and June, and probably in June. But I'm seeing in the collective and also in public that there's a lot of spite and hatefulness and a lot of duplicity. And, you know, I've talked in this dialogue today a lot about, you know, our own individual internal spaces. But, you know, on the external, there's a lot of expression of just anger and resentment and envy, jealousy, and a lot of just tricky synchronistic situations going on. And I feel like it can't last. I feel like this is on borrowed time. And I feel like people have lost a lot of their decorum in recent times. And I do think that there's going to be some kind of event. Maybe this is a global event, or maybe this is just like personal synchronicities that really break these paradoxes or break these problematic situations. The wind is just kicking up. I'm really feeling that. I'm really feeling that something is going to set a lot of this straight. I'm feeling that this may be hard for people, though. I'm feeling like people there may be like more poverty, or there may be some type of global event that makes people change there's just a crow flying overhead. And I think it symbolizes that there's some kind of transformation or some type of death that is going to come through during these oncoming months at a symbolic level, okay, that causes people to set their minds straight about some things, okay, and causes people to be a bit more decorous and causes people to choose not to participate with some of these obnoxious, shadowy masculine, okay, I'm not talking about the healthy masculine, but shadowy masculine energies that are very aggressive, very advantage-taking, very non-committal, okay, very fearful avoidant, only wanting what's good for them, what feels good to them, not committing to the things that matter, forsaking obligations, okay, shadow masculine energy. That's so prolific right now, you all, and it's not going to work well once Jupiter goes into Cancer. I'm seeing debts. I'm seeing that some people have got to come to terms with their actual place now in order to get where they need to be. They can't keep dreaming things away. They can't keep dreaming time away. They can't keep this up. They can't continue in certain mental vacuums and also screen addictions because it's not real or it's like some kind of mirage. So they have to get onto their own 2 feet. They have to get their brain and their feet in the same place. They have to get their heart on board. They have to work with the whole family. They have to work with the whole community, regardless of who they are, regardless of what their practices are. It's like people have to come together and not be so judgmental based on people's lifestyles or life choices, and they have to work together to actually have like civilization and society and to not be overtaken by a lot of really dark energies that are like overtones coming from a lot of different like principalities, okay? So it's like people are going to have to get past all of this small level stuff. Like, I don't support that person because of who they love, or I don't support that person because of their economic caste, or I don't support that person because of their religious beliefs or something like that. Like, all this human divisive stuff is so extreme right now, and it's actually got really flared up in this last year or so since we've had Jupiter in Gemini. And it's like trying to bond through the divisions, or it's trying to bond, but in the long term, it's a separating factor, not a cohesive factor. So Jupiter in Cancer is going to come in and it's going to make things more cohesive, and it's going to give reality checks too, and it's going to offer a lot of chances for healing and for creating a home that's well. Now, will we be invited to some of these homes if we're in these shadow masculine places? Probably not. We may have to be in like apartments and you know, being on the phone all day or something. But if we can get things together, I'm seeing a lot of dreams come true. I'm seeing a lot of strengthened communities, and I'm seeing people on the same page. But it takes honesty, and we're going to have to let go of some of these paradoxes and chaotic situations. And with that, everyone, I would spend extra time in prayer and extra time in protective energies from this time until about August or September, even for the rest of 2025, just because there is a feeling of things really changing, right? With Neptune now being in Aries, Pluto now being in Aquarius, Uranus getting towards that cusp of Taurus and Gemini, Saturn about to change signs. You know, during changes like these, which we may not understand until we have hindsight after a few years, what even happened during this time, but during these types of changing times, we really need to fortify what works in our lives and not be afraid to release what we know doesn't, to really release these paradoxes. So keep safe, everyone. Keep it easy. And I hope you enjoyed this inspired nature walk dialogue. Have a great day. Bye.